Hello, and welcome to Tavern Talk. I'm Trevor Lancaster.
And I'm Timothy Gibbons. Today's segment is A Pint for the Players, where we talk about player tips, tricks, breakdowns, rundowns, and NPC shakedowns.
We're going to be sitting in the Silver Steed today, on the 4th level of Braska. Braska is a dwarven city that's carved into the center of a volcano. Makes it easier for their metallurgy and crafts. The 4th layer has a stunning view of the lava pits down below. So it's warm in here, and I'm barely dressed.
I am an elf, and I am naked.
That's uncomfortable.
So, today we are going to be talking about NPC shakedowns or shake-ups. This is basically where you as a player can influence the direction, course, and outcome of a campaign simply by how you interact with certain NPCs that your Dungeon Master puts in the world. Now, this is kind of a fun way where you as a player can kind of put your thumbprint on the world, is how you're interacting with the NPCs, and especially if you can keep your character in character. This creates so many fun ways that you can not just interact with the world, but you also can change its course, or in some cases, destroy it in a completely spectacular fashion.
Which brings us to not just leaving a thumbprint, but leaving a literal crater.
Exactly. So, it's different ways that you can do this. Well, I remember one character I had. Came in a little late on this particular campaign. It was, you give the lead into it there, Trevor, and then I'll jump in once my character gets introduced.
So that was the time that we had set up this small war that was going on. One of my players was the captain of this troop of soldiers that were getting ready to take this outpost on the far side. They were prepared and getting ready to stealth in when he decides, no, we can do this as a small SWAT team. We'll sneak in through the sewers and take them by surprise. So, after a few charisma rolls and convincing the rest of his squad to stay behind, him and a selection of 4 other of his closest soldiers worked their way into the sewers. One, a devout cleric. The other, a new recruit trying to prove himself. And the last, a rogue assassin, one of his right-hand man. They worked their way through the sewers and into the main barracks, silencing 2 of the guards and working their way into the main fortress. They found themselves in a prison area where they looked and noticed a dragonborn shackled to the ground and near beaten to death. And I think that's where you came in.
Pretty much. So, finding the dragonborn was the start of because it pretty much ended with them getting into the fort, and then the next session I was actually able to make it for that one. And I was like, okay, Trevor, I've got this dragonborn berserker barbarian that I want to throw in. And I gave him, of course, he's lawful good. He's didn't have a very high intelligence modifier, but he had a strong sense of loyalty to any soldiers or creatures that he fought alongside of and bled alongside of. In other words, Shakespearean, he who sheds blood with me this day is my brother. So we decided, okay, Trevor puts him in the jail, and the other players come in, they see him there, they liberate him, he is grateful for their assistance, and so grabs his axe and journeys with them throughout the fortress, helping them to obliterate all the soldiers in the compound. Then, as we are gathering the bodies, beginning to burn them, we've looted everything. The gate is open for the main garrison. The main garrison has been signaled, and they come marching up to the gates. And that's where everything went sideways.
That is where everything went sideways. One of the other characters that joined in decided that they wanted to make
an impression.
A warlock tiefling. Mm-hmm. They found him stuffed in a crate, and he then began making trouble for the rest of the party.
He did. He came in on that session the same time I did, so
yep.
Trevor decided with his character, well, we're just going to stuff him in this crate, and got liberated out of that.
Actually, I think that was his idea, and I was like, yeah, no, totally. You could
that
could be crammed in a box somewhere.
Yes.
I tried to make it seem like it was a mimic, but everybody knew already, so didn't quite work out to my...
And, sometimes it's hard with mimics. I mean, because you get somebody at the table who makes a funny joke, they laughed, the barkeep laughs, the table gets killed. It's a good day.
Or the table starts an entire encounter and you realize half the tavern is actually fake, and wow, that was an entire afternoon of just killing a false building.
I think I was there for that one.
I think you were, but I'm not entirely sure.
I think I got in late on that session. Yeah. So, what happens is the Tiefling Warlock, he sees the soldiers coming up, and I believe the whoever was playing the commander had failed to let us know that the garrison was coming in. Yes. So the first creatures the garrison sees are two creatures that they've never seen before, namely the Tiefling Warlock and my Dragonborn Barbarian, standing in front of a pile of burning corpses, which was the original guards of the keep. The tiefling then decides he sees these unknown soldiers, and so does some sort of illusion mixed with thaumaturgy to project himself, making himself seem demonic.
He wanted to seem like a demon lord who had just taken over this place, and attempts to scare away the rest of the troops coming in.
Which did not happen. He rolled high on his intimidation.
Oh man, that thing was nat 20'd.
Yeah, so he scared the ever-living Tiamat out of those guardsmen, and that was when they started getting hostile towards the tiefling. My barbarian, of course, I'm thinking, okay, I don't know these guards, I do know this tiefling, I will protect this tiefling, but at the same time I'm looking over at the guy playing the commander and waiting for him to simply introduce us to his troop, de-escalating the situation. That did not happen.
No, it did not. Instead, he was sitting there, he throws down his sword, takes his shield, pulls back his seat, is like, let's see how these boys do.
At which point, I am looking at my character, trying to come up with some way to de-escalate this, and realizing that the way I've created my character, he will stand by those he has fought beside and shed blood with. And if one of his fellow blood brothers is threatened, he will rage and destroy anything that threatens them. The guards threatened the tiefling. That became interesting as suddenly my barbarian finds himself completely surrounded. And we were using a map at this time, so my poor barbarian miniature is completely surrounded by guardsmen. 8 of them at a time swinging at him. Fortunately, they didn't have very many ranged attackers, and nobody had spears or halberds or anything with reach. Mm-hmm. So it was just the 8 around him.
Well, it wasn't so much that they didn't have it, as you were in beyond the gate, so they had this narrow opening that they couldn't actually shoot through to get to you.
That's right.
It was a very situational, nice funneling to that location.
It was. So my barbarian basically, the cleric drops back and just starts spamming health into me. I'm a 5th level barbarian berserker path, so I'm throwing down 3 attacks with my great axe every turn, cutting. And these are fairly actually low level guards. There was just a bunch of them. And after the first couple rounds of combat, I'm getting to where I'm knocking down 1 or 2 of them every round, only to see more and more coming up. How many rounds of combat? I can't remember.
I have no idea, but I know that it was a troop of 50 men.
Yes. We killed a chunk of them. Not a big chunk, but we did kill a chunk of them as they were coming through the gate with some sort of fire trap. And then afterwards, It was just, I think our cleric burned through pretty much every healing spell he had and almost every spell slot he had, keeping my Dragonborn on its feet. So my Dragonborn is laying waste with his great axe, getting covered in cuts and slashes. At the start of the cleric's turn, he's badly beaten, then suddenly brought back up to health, continues to lay waste around him, until Clearing the blood from his reptilian eyes, he realizes that there are no more guardsmen left to kill. And thus ended the one character's role as a captain of the guard.
Yes, as there was no more guard for him to captain.
So if you're looking for a career change, by all means, let the barbarian take over. Because career changes, yes, that can be easily arranged with the barbarian. Just get him raged and point him in the right direction.
And hand him a two-handed axe.
Exactly.
But yes, no, it wasn't fully intentional, but between the intimidation check, the fire bomb that you guys basically set up with every single barrel of oil in the encampment, and watching the guards just be slain coming through the door. I mean, you scared away a good 25 of those poor guards that fled into the hillside, never to pick up sword or shield again.
Leaving only 25 to be taken down.
And as they were funneling in and fighting you, if I remember correctly, the tiefling could barely hit anything.
Oh, the tiefling was worthless in combat. The only thing he was good at was getting stuff riled up.
He did do very good at that.
He was very good at that.
And he ignited the oil.
He did ignite the oil, so he did do some damage that way, but as far as actual attacks, not so much.
Yeah, no. I mean, the thing that worked the most for him was his hellish rebuke.
Mm-hmm.
The assassin stayed up on the wall and just picked people off as they came through when he found a longbow and just kind of hid off in the corner.
Which was definitely a help.
The captain sat and didn't do anything, and the entire campaign had to be recrafted from my set point of the few that escaped reported back that the captain of the guard had been demon-possessed and had taken the fort for himself. So the rallying guards were putting together a squad to go take back that fortress. But they were putting together the best squad that they could find. And some of this information was going to be leaked to the players to see what they would do.
I'm trying to remember, we ended up ending that session or that campaign for some reason.
It was mainly because everybody who was playing in it either had more school things to do or had to leave.
That's right, yeah.
Or did not like the idea that they completely slaughtered an entire group of NPCs. Which, if you're probably not going to be okay with slaughtering an entire group of NPCs, don't leave it so that they can be slaughtered. Step in. Talk to your players. Try and talk things out. Try and talk things down.
Charisma checks, persuasion checks, even deception checks. Whatever you gotta do. Try to talk them down. There's always a way to avoid catastrophe. Most of the time.
Remember, when you're stuck between a rock and the hard place, you choose the one that you can sleep with.
I don't know if this is good advice or not.
Well, if you're a bard, it's great advice.
Okay, what's good advice for a bard is not necessarily good advice for a barbarian.
This is true.
And then, I don't know, do you have one? As an example?
As an example? Well, there was this one time where the players... Well, there was multiple times where the players left fingerprints throughout my world by affecting different NPCs.
Do you want to save that for DM, or do you want to do a player one? Since we're doing players.
Oh, yeah, we should do... save that one for DM.
Alright, so since I've hogged the mic a little bit, Trevor, what type of a player have you had that impacted the NPCs? I should say, okay. One character. I know you've been doing this way longer than I have. One character.
One character.
And it can't be the blind horse.
But that blind horse, though. That blind horse.
Okay.
Oh my god. That blind horse. He was amazing at everything. Whereas my character was terrible at everything. The dice loved that horse and hated my character. But that horse gained infamy in the game that we played. And the games that followed suit after that one, where despite him having a translational issue with convincing people, his charisma level was higher than mine to a point to where if my character couldn't convince somebody of it, my horse probably would. But aside from that, it's not so much that my horse was a player, but he did affect the world in an amazing way and changed the hearts of everyone he met, except for his rider, who stubbornly stayed agnostic. Now, there's been a lot of different times where the players have affected the world and made a landmark upon it, such as throughout the Holy Night campaign, as it's been referred to, or the Hell campaign for some people, as they have referred to it. One of my players made a character, Jim the Bard, and Jim the Bard got infected with lycanthropy. He decided to turn away from his bard lifestyle and wanted to become a symbol of justice and a hero amongst the people. So he stole the identity of a man known as the Holy Knight and went to the blacksmith, had a giant cross manufactured for him, and wore it upon his back. There he walked into a small town that was having an issue with undead. They sent him off to this tower that was in the back reaches of a swamp. A necromancer there had been slowly raising an undead army to try and take vengeance on the village for embarrassing him in a tavern, actually. There he stood against the necromancer, broke his way into this abandoned tower fortress. The tower was primarily made out of wood, which he proceeded to set fire to. After fighting the necromancer in this now burning down tower, he fought him to a standstill and finally slayed the necromancer, and started to work his way out with 5 hit points remaining. I did everything I could to attempt to save him, but he ended up burning to death inside that tower. The tower burnt down around him, his corpse became infused with the giant metal cross that he wore upon his back, and thus the rumor of the death of the Holy Knight Kowalski spread across the world and got to the ears of Kowalski himself. After finding out about his rumored demise, he decided this would be the perfect time to actually investigate his religious organization, which he had inklings that was dabbling in necromancy themselves. So, he let his legend die so that he could become an infiltrator of his very organization.
The Black Order, I believe it was.
The Black Order is what was tainting his organization. But, yeah, it led to a whole quest chain that I had not even thought about touching, based on how based on how the character's death was revealed and how the townspeople perceived it. So, as a character, realize that you have a complete effect on the world, but don't let it try and change how you're going to play in the world. Because sometimes not knowing how your fingerprint's going to smudge something leads to an amazing adventure that can go on for a year or two.
And that was actually the campaign that I first got started in with my dwarf, Gimpleton Goldenshin.
That was the same campaign.
And essentially, Gimpleton ends up teaming up with Kowalski towards the end.
Yes.
And together going into hell to take down this demon.
Yeah. Throughout all of the adventures you guys had throughout this world, the one thing that stuck out to all of you was that 1 week you spent in hell. You're like, oh man, we got back from the abyss. This campaign was hell.
I know, honestly, the actual hell part of it was a very short part, but just the build up to it and then the slogging it out through hell. We're cut off. We have a very small force, no backup, no reinforcements. We have no idea how we're going to replenish our gear, and we just have to slog our way through, fighting our way tooth and nail until we finally get to the demon, vanquish it, and then get out on the hell ship we captured.
Yeah. Which I think we touched base on in another video. But...
Which I think we touched base on the first one, but now you know some of the backstory of that right there.
Yeah, now you have a little bit of a look into the backstory of Gimpy Gimpleton.
And we will let your imaginations fill in the rest. This is Timothy Gibbons.
And Trevor Lancaster.
So, if you liked our recording here today, or you want to send us comments, suggestions, or critiques, you can cast your sending spells to gmtaverntalk@gmail.com, or cast your message cantrips into the reply section below.
We'll look at them if we can. Well, we should look at them more often.
I think we should.
We should. We might cut that. If not, we don't.